Welcome to another edition of Black and Azul. This is episode number 12, coming to you live here in studio. My name is Charles Wollin, alongside my broadcast partner here, Johnny Soria. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Good to see you here again.
Absolutely. Great interview. If you missed it, go to Black and Azul episode number 11. Joel with an exclusive with Victor Muma Bernardez. But let's get into the Quakes. They have a good run of form right now, 4 games unbeaten, 3 games in a row at home, 5 out of the last 6 unbeaten, very much looking the part. Nice 1-0 victory, red card though at home against Cincinnati. What do you make?
Well, yeah, make a lot out of that red card that they had, right? Where Cristian Espinoza does the right thing to stop the Cincinnati's transition into the box. You know, deservingly so, gets the second yellow card, as Matias Almeida also echoed. And then go on to display this tenacity, this grit that we haven't seen from a San Jose Earthquakes side in, I don't know, I mean, maybe 3 years. I recall that game against Toronto FC where they were able to squeeze out a victory with 9 men on the field, right? That night where Alberto Quintero and I forgot who else went out with a red card, but they were able to squeeze out that victory. A lot similar on Saturday against Cincinnati. You know, like I said, a team that was really, really committed to the style, who was committed to communicating with one another, and who were committed to make up for the loss of Espinoza early on in the 50th minute of the second half.
Well, he's had to get kind of creative with his lineup as well. Now with Espinoza being out of the side, Danny Houston kind of finding his boots as well. You know, some lineup changes may be coming as well that he talked about in midweek though, right, Joel?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can touch that up on a little sooner. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Cincinnati win because I think there was more than just a very defining 1-0 victory against obviously a very struggling Cincinnati side, which fired their manager just shortly after that defeat. And it was Nick Lima. And I know we've been talking about Nick Lima for numerous reasons, but in this match specifically, we're going to be talking about him due to the fact that he was able to score his first goal of 2019, playing on the left side, an orchestrated, premeditated corner set piece that he was able to slot in with his right foot right past the goalkeeper. And let's talk about how this boosts his stock for the Gold Cup. We mentioned this a couple weeks ago that, you know, Nick Lima getting that call for the U.S. men's national team in this year's Gold Cup was definitely in doubt, right? He wasn't getting the playing time. He was finding himself on the bench. And all of a sudden, you know, he slots into the left back role, replaces Marcos Lopez, and now is performing at a very, very high rate at the, you know, that Nick Lima level that we saw last year, the Nick Lima level that we've been seeing all along, and certainly the Nick Lima that we saw with the U.S. men's national team, the one that Almeida wanted him to play as, and that's what he's actually playing at the moment. He's playing up to par. You know, he's being the difference maker, and I think he's going to continue on that role. So it definitely does boost his stock there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think fans want to see Nick Lima in the national team side, especially after such a refreshing, you know, way of looking at him in January, and this new look U.S. national team under Greg Berhalter. And it's also something to be versatile, be able to play at right back, left back, and score goals from either position too.
Right,
so,
and it also helps
you know,
that DeAndre Yedlin went under a surgery, you know, had a procedure done to, I'm not entirely sure what part of his body, but it's for him to, you know, to take advantage of that and, you know, to really cement his place with the U.S. men's national team.
Now it's 4 games unbeaten as a whole, only 1 loss in April. The start of the season was really quite argy-bargy. We weren't sure if the players were all on the right, you know, all the kind of puzzle pieces fit here. But, you know, you and I watched the game 2 weeks ago in Seattle. They almost looked like they couldn't lose that game. They almost looked like they were going to win. The game against Dallas on the road, confident on the road. The game against Houston, even though they lost 2-1, confident on the road. Games at home, extremely confident, getting 3 points. and continuing on that roll. If you can get points at home and win most of your matches there and get a few points on the road here and there and show confidence, because in the past the Quakes haven't shown the confidence that they have this year. But do you see this kind of run of form continuing and cycling through? Do you think that now the batteries are in place to be able to get this thing going? I know you said 7th spot. Seventh spot? Yeah, maybe more.
Spot. That's what it's looking that's what it's looking like at the moment, and I think it will continue at least up until Saturday. They're going to be taking on a ref side that is in complete shambles at the moment. I know they just lost about an hour ago, 5-0 to the Chicago Fire. I don't even know if Friedel will wake up as the Revs manager tomorrow, to be quite honest with you. So I think they'll travel, and there are going to be changes, as Matias Almeida hinted at. Not only the mandatory replacement, right, on the left side of the field with Cristian Espinoza absent and slotting someone in there, but also in their front setup, the scheme up top, the attacking formation. He said he's looking at 2 to 3 different options of how he can tinker that, because he did say that it's going to take a lot to try and replace Espinoza, a player with virtues that no one else in the team has. I mean, I think we can all agree on that as well. Espinoza is not by far, but is definitely the most skilled player that the Earthquakes have. But I do see them continuing their run of form at least up until next Saturday against the Revs. They should be able to get their first away victory in, I don't know how many days it's been now, but it's been quite some time.
East Coast trip too, 3-hour time change, going to be a long flight out there to the New England area. But in the press conference, we have Matias Almeida, we have some fresh video of that. Let's go ahead and play a little bit of that.
Bueno, creo que el análisis de esa gente debe ser más profundo porque San José venía peor que todos.
I think the analysis from those people that think that is deeper than that, because San Jose was doing worse off than anybody else.
Nosotros estamos equiparando en resultados, fuerzas y un estilo que lleva un tiempo.
We're taking a result and a style that this takes time.
Nosotros hicimos buenos partidos con equipos que no vienen bien.
We've had good games against teams that might have not been doing so well.
Hicimos excelentes partidos con equipos que vienen muy bien.
And we've had excellent games with teams that have also been doing very well.
Esto marca de la paridad que tiene este torneo y el fútbol a nivel mundial.
That shows how equal this tournament is and football in general.
Si nadie pensaba que ayer Barcelona iba a recibir 4 goles.
Nobody thought yesterday that Barcelona was going to get scored on 4 times.
Imagínense nosotros San José si podemos llegar a pensar que
Imagine today in San Jose that we could think that
podemos contra todos y nadie puede contra nosotros.
we can against everybody and nobody can against us.
Sería demasiado soberbio de nuestra parte
That'd be pretty arrogant on our part
y demasiado irreal.
and pretty unrealistic as well.
Matias Almeida in midweek. Lots of comments, some, good, fair question there about are the wins legit or not against struggling teams. I think it's been a balance of a lot of these teams, but what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the Earthquakes have, in a way, cherry-picked a couple of those victories going up against, a Cincinnati side that was struggling, going up against a Portland side that at the time was struggling. Certainly won't be struggling as the season extends, to a deeper level. But, it's like you said, it's a balance. It's a mixture of everything. What about the good performances, not the victories, the draws, but the good performances against Seattle, the good performance away against Dallas? You need to take all these into consideration as well. The Earthquakes have been progressing, whether it's, little by little or exponentially, they have been getting better, and they're getting there. But the overall the overall mentality right now within the walls of Avaya Stadium is that the Earthquakes can't really get too ahead of themselves, and that they have to take one step at a time. And if they lack concentration for even the slightest second, they'll be pinned back to where they were, right, which is league irrelevancy. And that's a very scary thought for any of these players, knowing that at any point of the season they can go and go right back into that mode that they were in, that took them so long to get out of. So it's still a day-to-day operation. You know, this team knows that they are improving, but they still have a very, very long way to get to where they want to be. And I have to agree. I mean, you know, like I said, this team is going to be competing for that 6-7 spot in the West, and they're going to fall below the red line. They're going to go above the red line, I think, all season long. You know, there are teams within the West. The West right now is super competitive. I think, in my opinion, much better than the East. And there's teams like Portland and Sporting Kansas City who might not be in the picture all that much. But, you know, as the weeks progress, you know, they're going to compete for those spots, you know. And you have Houston, who a lot of people are doubting, but, you know, they're up there and they're going to be in contention all season long as well. So there's just a lot of names in there that are really, really going to, you know, make it difficult for the Quakes to hold up, you know, above that red line.
Yeah, the way that I look at it is a kind of a mixture of all of these things, and I'll continue to harp back on it and kind of pump my fist on the ground. Win your matches at home, get points away when you can.
Yeah.
In the past with this team, they're sitting in a Colorado Rapids position with 2 draws and 8 losses, like Colorado is sitting here. But now, under Matias Almeida, they've shown improvement. They are right now, at this time, a mid-table team in the West. You have to beat the teams below you to be able to get into the playoffs. So it's really simple as that. If they can pick off some of these top 3 or 4 teams that are above them in the West, and, you know, beat some Eastern Conference teams, they're going to be sitting pretty as a top 4 or 5 team in this Western Conference. But the Dallas game, the Houston game, even though they lost by a small margin, the Seattle game, which 2 weeks ago you and I watched together, and they didn't even look like they could lose that game. There were some stretches here and there, but they always were just so confident, and the poise was there. Very, very different than what you've seen in the past with this Earthquakes team. So that's kind of the way that I see it. Let's take some of your guys' questions. Again, the premise of this show is to include you, be inclusive. That is our ethos. That is our motto. That's what we're here for. Black and Azul is just that. So let's take a couple questions here. We'll just take a quick one by Eli Rathall. Best center back partnership, and a couple comments there. But what do you think of that? Is it Harold Cummings,
Florian Youngworth,
and Florian Youngworth right now? Don't change it.
Absolutely, there's no reason to change that at all. And obviously having Guram Kasha on the bench, 100% healthy, by the way. He's good to go, and he's been training with the team. Doesn't have a cast over his right ankle anymore. Is a really, really good option off the bench. You know, in a leadership standpoint, on the field, as well as a player, you know, he brings pretty good quality. This season, he had a really rough start to the season, and ironically, when he got injured and he was carried off the field, you know, the fortunes of the team turned around. So a lot can be said about that, but it's good to have a player like him on the bench, and certainly in the locker room, he's a fighter, he's a leader, he's someone that really, you know, brings the camaraderie to the team.
All right. So will Vaco play this weekend due to Espinoza's suspension, or will there be more than one lineup change, writes Emmanuel TWR?
Yes, so prior to the press conference today, I believe that it was going to be a very simple transition from the lineup that we got last week to the one that should be coming up against the Revs on Saturday. What I would choose was just to go with Marcos Lopez in as the left mid / winger for Shea Salinas, shift Shea Salinas to his natural right foot on the right side, and make up for Espinoza's loss that way. But after hearing Almeida speak about that a little bit, and him hinting at making attacking scheme alternations, I'm not entirely sure what is going to happen and what the lineup is going to look like. I don't think that he's going to tinker a whole lot with the midfield or with his back four. Certainly not with his goalkeeper, but you know, those attacking three, those 4 players, it's going to be interesting to see how things line up.
BM Broadcasting, can the players keep up this pace and Almeida's physically demanding style through the summer? I think that they can. However, he's going to need some reinforcements. This squad isn't as deep as I think that this manager and this coaching staff and this coaching style would like. They play a different way. They play out of the back. They have to stay switched on. It's a lot of incredible energy that they're expending to be able to recover the ball up high, pressing when they press, not press when they don't press, and counterattack on these other teams. But they definitely need some reinforcements. I think you and I spoke about this. I think the biggest need is a number 10, an attacking midfield player that can kind of pick that lock. That the Quakes have lacked, over many years. But it is that player who's almost a wizard, and we see many wizards in MLS. We see a lot of fine players, and some of these teams that can boast those types of players as well.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very, very demanding tactical setup, right? That he calls for all the players to run and to shift back and to move forward and to slot in for the teammate who is marking the man in front. It's very demanding. Overall, it's just a very grueling system. And I think the players have adjusted to that, rightfully so. They're fit. They're probably the fittest they've ever been in their careers. And they've expressed that, time and time again. But, this team is going to need reinforcements, not only for that reason, but for the other reason. And we know what the other reason is that there are a couple of players within the Earthquakes organization who have not had playing time in the last year. And, I'm referring to the Jimmy Ockfords, the Francois Folters of the world. They're completely out of the picture, absent from the system, from the picture, from the lineup, from the 18. Jimmy Ockford has been able to creep in there once in a while, but players like Francois Folter, collecting a paycheck and living in San Jose is pretty much all he's doing, attending practices. Almeida is certainly going to shed off those players. He's made it quite clear that the players who are not, in tune with his style, with his demands, the door is there for them to leave. And I think they will be presented to the door here in the summer, in the coming weeks. As we know, the primary transfer window just ended yesterday. The Quakes made no moves, whether it was, international or intra-league. I think this summer they should be bringing in a couple of players, and I assume a couple of DPs. I am hearing one name. I've been hearing one name, and I think I should just say it here now. I was going to keep it to myself, and I was going to write about it when it comes, I guess, if things start to develop a little bit more. But I think it's fair to say to all the audience who's tuning in and for everyone, the Quakes, per source, are looking at Osvaldo Alanis, center back from Real Oviedo, Mexican international, Almeida at Chivas. This is a player that has a lot of relevancy, within
Absolutely.
the U.S./Mexican market. I think a player that, to me, is ideal for Almeida. Yes, the Quakes do have a surplus of center backs, but they still don't have that player that Matias Almeida trusts 100%, and that player who is really going to be able to, dictate the style of play on the field and really just, like I said, carry that Matias ethos 100% day in and day out.
If that signing does become a reality, do you think that he slots in alongside Cummings, or do you think he slots in alongside Florian Jungwirth, or there's just a nice group of 4 center backs that he's ready to rely on at any time?
I think it's the last option that you mentioned. I mean, a season is so unpredictable and it's so long. You don't know what's going to happen, right? Like, injuries can happen. Trades can happen as well. A lot of these things you have to take in consideration, though. But I'm sure that Matias has a list of players that he really wants to bring in, regardless of the situation that is ongoing with their current roster. At this point in time, I wouldn't say Alanis would be the most logical signing, but it's a player that he wants. It's a player that he feels internally will provide and will bear fruit for his team. So if that's the case, there's no doubt about it. I mean, Alanis is a pretty versatile center back. at some point Juan Carlos Osorio was using him as a left back as well. So, he has a really good left foot as well. He's left-footed. The Quakes don't have a left-footed center back. They were playing Cummings on the left center back, and he's not a left-footed player. So, I guess he fills in that void as well.
Do you think he'll rotate the squad in the summer with U.S. Open Cup matches potentially coming up and friendlies like he did
and the Gold Cup as well?
Yeah, the Gold Cup.
He's going to be losing
from BM Broadcasting as well. By the way, good questions, BM Broadcasting. Keep them up.
Lima could be going to the Gold Cup, given his recent form, and you also have Cummings and Godoy, who are definitely going to be in the Gold Cup as well. And
it's going to be rough on this squad.
Yeah, international
really
duty,
rough on this squad.
International duty back in March, I believe, didn't really please Almeida all that much, right? He said in the press conference that it was a period of time that really hurt the team because they were trying to ramp things up ahead of the season, and out of nowhere, you lose 5-6 key players, and that's definitely going to happen this summer as well. And you have to take in consideration the U.S. Open Cup. If they're going to take that serious, and if they're going to really try and contend, for that title, then they're going to have to, dig into this squad. They're going to have to find, players who are going to be able to fulfill the system in the exact manner that the first team is doing it.
And while you're here, since Joel is a wizard, and I've used the word wizard already to describe a number 10, and Joel would have the scoop on this, are there any Reno players that you think he's going to be able to bring up as well? While we're talking about all of this transfer stuff, we're getting in our transfer window stuff right now. Any Reno players?
I haven't heard of anything on my end, but it's completely possible. There are a couple players for Reno who are playing well. LaCroix being one. He's not a number 10 though. He's a fullback, but yeah, there's always that possibility. You can never say no to that. There's not a definite yes or no. It's not black or white. The partnership is going to exist for the upcoming years, and during that span, any player can come in as they can go out to Reno as well. So from my end, though, I haven't heard anything regarding Reno and players coming from Reno to San Jose.
Appreciate you guys' questions. Keep them up. Keep chatting with us live here. We always like to answer your questions. They're a really important, integral part of our show. We want to be as inclusive as possible and answer any question that we can that comes across our way here that in our capacity we can answer as we kind of cover this team. Well, speaking of that, hello, Crazy George. How are you? Yes, it's his 75th birthday. Crazy George, a professional cheerleader, invented the wave.
Yeah.
This is a guy that lives, breathes, talks, sings, San Jose Earthquakes, day in, day out. Every single strand of his hair here, including, him just being here in bobblehead form, is a really true testament to the club, heartbeat, if you will. And I think he's just such an important character, and we have to honor him because 75 years of age, still beating that drum at the inception of the Quakes. This is the guy. And congratulations, 75 years old, Crazy George.
Yeah, hopefully we can get him on the show sometime. We can perhaps interview him here at the studio. It'd be amazing. He's the embodiment of the San Jose Earthquakes from the beginning up until now, and hopefully for many more years to come. So happy 75th birthday, Crazy George. Keep doing what you do and keep making Avaya Stadium, a rocking place.
Yeah, cheers to him. And one of the other things we want to touch on here is a local soccer match. The first round of the U.S. Open Cup. Academica Soccer Club hosting El Farolito. Both clubs play in the NPSL, and as El Farolito also has a team in SFSFL. They qualified last year for the Open Cup. For this year, Academica had to go through quite a few qualifying rounds to get out there, but the game was shown internationally on ESPN Plus. Academica hosting Farolito, losing by a scoreline of 2-1. but the difference maker was a golazo. Absolute golazo by El Farolito, who will host in the next round against Fresno FC at home at Boxer Stadium in San Francisco. Academica is your hometown team.
That's
El
right.
Farolito, San Francisco. I hail from that area. But, just such an awesome part of our game right here in Northern California. A first-round U.S. Open Cup game with international coverage, beautiful camera angles, and something that is just helping grow the game in this country, which is something that I am very passionate about, and I appreciate seeing something like that on the stage. And, it's important to see smaller clubs do well in that competition.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an interesting game.
Yeah.
It was entertaining. There was a red card. There was that possible Puskás award, nominee type of goal, that left-footed bicycle kick. But I guess to spurn this into like a Quakes-related, content, these two teams, now Farolito or Fresno can take on the Quakes in the fourth round. You never know. I mean, these are teams that you need to keep an eye on because, a couple of years ago, the Quakes hosted the Deltas, right? So anything can happen. Anything can happen. But, I know you're big on grassroots soccer, and it's good to see that, a big entity like ESPN is emphasizing our grassroots amateur soccer.
One last Quakes-related question before we go. BM Broadcasting, once again, you're just destroying the questioning today. Man of the match for the FC Cincinnati game. I'm going to say Nick Lima just because it was just a wonderful, well-taken goal. You?
Daniel Vega.
Okay.
Daniel Vega has been the unsung hero of the Quakes turnaround.
Yeah.
I really hope that in the next couple of days I can publish a piece that I've started putting together today. I had a really, really interesting talk with him after practice, and he really just opened up about his arrival in San Jose and how he's lived through very, very arduous moments, and how he hopes to be a legend within the Earthquakes community by the time he retires. And who does he want to retire with? The San Jose Earthquakes, by the way. He made that pretty clear as well. So, I wanted to dive in a little deeper into, how he got here, what his perspective was on the league, how he's been adjusting to it, and also to shine some light on some of the negativity that was said about his arrival. Here's a player that is playing within an inferior league in our country, right? Coming from the NASL and USL at the age of 34, making that transition over to MLS doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
So interesting story, really interesting talk with him, and I think he should have deserved, the man of the match. I thought he was exceptional, and that save, that was something else. That shows his quality, that's for sure.
He almost seems like he comes up against a penalty in every other game too, or every game, and the penalty taker will either hit the post, or it'll be saved as well. A fine story. I look forward to reading that. Make sure you guys follow both of us here on Twitter, and you can read that story as well. Speaking of being consistent, we will be back next week with episode number 13 of Black and Azul. If you like this live version, leave us a little note in the comments. Also, if you want us to answer other questions, please let us know as well. Any feedback is good feedback. Alongside Joel Soria, our producer, executive director, Jason Sholl, my name is Charles Wollin. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.